Welcome, guys, to the Progress Over Perfection podcast, episode number 5. Now, a subject myself and Ali are going to be covering today is imposter syndrome, something that all of us, I think, experience from time to time. So, we're going to delve into a little bit about our experiences with it as well, and also how you kind of overcome it as you go throughout experiencing it as well. So, Ali, first off, I want to see what do you think imposter syndrome is, and when have you noticed it most in your life?
It's a cool topic this because I've read something about 4 months ago that put imposter syndrome in a different perspective to me. Because I always looked at imposter syndrome if it's a negative thing, like you don't belong somewhere.
Mm,
But the statement was something on the lines, I'm definitely paraphrasing this in regards to if you're not feeling like an imposter, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Because imposter syndrome is just feel like you just don't belong. But when we were speaking about this literally before we jumped on the podcast, like when you're achieving something that you've never achieved before, of course you don't feel like you belong there because you've never actually done it. It's like when you start first driving a car, you don't feel like you should be in a car. But when you've been driving for 2 years, you're driving it with one finger on you. It's
yeah,
like you pick. So imposter syndrome for me is an uncomfortable situation that you need to adapt and learn from. That's how I like to look at it because when you're pushing yourself harder, when you're achieving things that you never thought you could achieve before, it's going to take a while for you actually to feel comfortable within that environment. And then the funny thing is, you're going to push yourself even harder, and then you're going to feel like an imposter. So I'm teaching on this weekend for full ball. I'll be cool as a cucumber. I've done it time and time again. But the first time I taught for full ball, I can actually remember when we went to Scotland, I was so nervous. So, because I didn't know anyone. And it's like when you're in an environment where you don't know people, that's when teaching's a lot harder. When you've got a few comfortable faces around you, it's like, you can just select them and bully them when you're talking. But
yeah.
when you're talking for the first time in front of a group of people you don't know, and it was like Greg Taylor was there, Dan Bastick was there. So you had some really, really established people who are very big personalities and the very big bodybuilders. And I'm
Mm.
sitting there like, I'm thinking I'm big at like 102 kilos, and that's what they diet down to, probably heavy. So it's like, it's a very, it's a quite a different scenario. But at the end of the day, when you know, if that makes sense. And like when you've earned it, you've earned it. And at the end of the day, I do think people who are successful, when they get put in some situations because they've earned the right thing, they've worked so hard, they're the ones who flourish. When people have got there potentially by cheating the system to some regards, that's when you found out a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think
Uh,
that's so true. And then when you said about Scotland there, what would you say the feeling of imposter syndrome was like? Describe how it felt.
okay, so the way I can describe this, I can remember when I first started coaching, I was mentored by a guy called Kane Warren. I think I spoke about him on the podcast, and like the goal was to teach when I was 35. That was the goal, was like to work really hard. I started when I was 22, 23, and I was like, the goal was to teach when I was 25, to have coaches come and listen to me, or people come and listen to me talk about training, which I love. I started teaching when I was 27, 28 on the OTE. And I remember that was like fucking feeling impossible. But in regards to how it felt in Scotland was, it's quite a surreal. I know it is going to a different country, but it's not going to a different country. Do you know what I mean? But it's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
quite a surreal moment. Thinking, people have driven a long way, people have come a long way to listen to me talk about something which I love, but at the same time, I'm just a little lad from Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? It's like you dream of these moments. So I think it's sometimes when you've hit like a dream that you've tried to prepare yourself all your life for, it's like the realization that's actually come true. That
hmm
was probably what it was in Scotland for me. It was a realize like fucking hell, like I've come to a different gym where I don't know anyone, and people actually listen. And then the comments I got after it were confirmation that they enjoyed what I was talking about.
yeah,
But that's the feeling, was like fucking hell, the dreams come true,
mm,
as opposed to like you don't feel like you belong there as such.
yeah. No, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And I think we talk about it a lot, don't we? About like the same situation, but looking at it through a different lens. And I
Yeah,
think, like you said, it's easy to initially look at imposter syndrome as a bad thing, whereas if you look at it as a way that I'm being tested to see if I'm worthy of what I say I want, you then step up to the mark and do what you need to do, and then beat that imposter
yeah.
syndrome.
I like that word tested. Like
Mm,
tested's a good way to refine, because it is a test. Can you like have you put in enough work at this moment in time to warrant where you're at? And
mm,
if you found it come up a little bit short, then you find out what your personality's like. Do you
yeah,
go back and learn and try and go for it again, or do you let that defeat you then? And you sort of go back to square one and try a different path. And I think the majority of people who are the mindsets of like you and I, if we found ourselves a little bit short in that category, we'll go back, learn what we lacked, and then come back even better.
yeah,
And that's like, it's a very similar to like competing or a physique development or photo shoots. It's like, you look at your physique and you always think, what did I lack? Even if you've done very well. And it's like, okay, back to the drawing board. How can I improve this? And I think it's always a seeking development of improvement.
Yeah.
Like we always want to improve, and we're never satisfied at the end of the day. So I think everyone who is the mindset of what we're talking about here is always want to feel like an imposter to some degree because they're not the finished product.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I'm actually gonna. Do you know what the definition of imposter syndrome is?
No, no, don't. But is it
I'm
one of
gonna,
these where it's like knowing like the definition of humble, where it's like you think it's
yeah.
a nice thing and then you realize it's not a nice thing at all?
Yeah. So it says here, imposter syndrome involves changing a person's mindset about their own abilities. Imposters feel like they don't belong, so acknowledging their skill set by doing something that they haven't done before. So literally exactly what you kind of said there. You went
Fucking
through.
hell,
So,
I'm basically the Oxford Dictionary.
but no, it's cool, isn't it? Because I think we all experience it through different angles, right? Because I think I know I've had it when I started coaching. I know I had it for my first show. Like we spoke before this about this coming weekend, and I think again the levels you experience it are different depending on like what it is and the pressure you put on yourself for it. But I think again, if you look at imposter syndrome as an opportunity to step up to where you want to be, then again you could just perceive it in the right way.
Right, okay, let's have a little chat about this weekend then. So obviously you done very, very well. Um, how did you feel after the weekend? Because I know, because I've known you for a long time. Now, when people think a long time, it's like just over a year, really, isn't it? But it's
Mm.
like we've obviously come very, very close in that time frame. Like I know what it's meant to you, but what let the listeners like, what did it mean to you? Like, what was it confirming?
Yes, that's a good question, and I think like I know like I've spoke to you before about like I know so I'll use Adriana for example, the physique that she's got is worthy of the result that she wanted as well. And for then it was like, okay, she's following everything I'm saying. Everything I'm saying is then dictating how she looks. So it's kind of like, shit, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I don't do this right and don't do that right? But then taking it back to what you said, I think that feeling makes me better. Like if I wasn't worried and I was just carelessly doing things, then my ability to miss in on that opportunity would be so much greater. Whereas that feeling of have I got it right? I'm double checking, I'm triple checking, and I'm going over everything like so meticulously that when you get the result like we did, it's the feeling kind of just confirms, okay, that's a good feeling. I know that that stress and that pressure that's coming from it is a positive thing because it allows me to be my best.
And it also, I think it also then reconfirms that what you're saying is right.
Yeah,
Because like
yeah, yeah.
especially when it comes to like sort of physique development or just coaching in general, okay. There's so many ways to skin a cat,
Hmm.
and there's so many modalities that you can put onto a certain person. So like how, for example, you would prep Adriana might be different to how you prep Paige, to
Yeah.
how be different you prep another girl. Do you know what I mean? Like depending on that individual, depending on the psychology of that individual, there'd be a different kind of path that you might take with someone. So it's like, okay, so I know Adriana's this type of personality. I know she'll do well off this, but you only it's only a thought until the application's applied, and then the result is the result.
Hmm.
And it's like it's confirmation of the hard work that you've put in, from, in my opinion, anyway, because I've definitely seen this from a closer point of view. The hard work that you've put in over years and years and years is now starting to really fruition with the skill set that you've got, and the
Yeah.
results are speaking for themselves.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
well
it's
done.
nice. It's really nice. And I think again, one thing I've learned from you is that when these situations come, is like lean into them. Don't fall out of them. So when you are faced with these moments where you feel I'm under pressure, it's like rise to the pressure. Don't succumb to the pressure. And there's always about coming above it. And the feeling that you get off the back of that from doing it, it's like, oh shit, I've reached a new level now.
And I think it's one of them, isn't it? It's like when you lean into something and you take it full on, even if you got defeated by it, at least you stood up for yourself. At least
Hmm.
you stood up and you've had a go. So
Yeah.
like, no, I'm a big fan of saying like live with life and no regrets.
Hmm.
It's like if you would potentially shy away and went, oh look, hey John, I feel like too much pressure here. I don't think I can coach you.
Yeah.
I think you need to go to someone else.
Mhm.
It's like you've ran away from an opportunity that will catapult you,
Yeah.
and because you stood up for it, because you applied yourself, and you've actually, and I think if people applied this in their life and just they just took the bull by the horns and just went for things, I think they feel a lot more fulfilled in their life. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people potentially feel unfulfilled because they're doing the same thing over and over again, and they think more of themselves than what they're actually giving themselves. But they're too afraid to potentially step outside their comfort zone and really go for something. So I had a call with a girl before, it was one of my clients, it was a little mentor call, and she was saying that she wants to go fully online. I said, okay, cool. It's like, she went, so how many clients she needs? She said she needs an extra 10 clients. So okay, so let's say we need 15, because you need that 5 client buffer, don't you? It's like, she wants to do it by in 18 months. It's like, why don't we try and do it in 6 months? Like,
Hmm.
what's the reason for the big gap? It's
Yeah.
like, so I like to think of like, set the bar as high as you can. If you fall just a little bit short, you're still done very well. So
Yeah.
like, let's set 6 months, and then if it ends up being 9 months, you're still 9 months ahead of what you were previously.
Yeah.
but everyone sets that like little bit of a safe barrier, and it's like, why? It's
Yeah,
like, what's the
no,
point? It's like life's so
that's so true.
short, isn't it? It's like you don't know what's gonna happen. Like tomorrow's not guaranteed. I know that sounds very morbid for everyone listening, and I do apologize, but like tomorrow's not guaranteed. Like you've got to be present. You've got to enjoy the time in life. It's like you and I had a fucking blast living here, and like we've got so many memories and so many stupid things have happened and whatnot. And because we were present, we didn't think, okay, fucking hell, what are we going to be doing in 6 months? Because then you don't live here anymore, so you
Yeah.
would have missed all them funny moments that we had, and
Mm.
all them deep conversations and fulfilling conversations that we had, and all them stupid training sessions, etc. And like the prep stories where you helped me through my prep, and like we got funny things there. Like I can still remember we were in JD, and you were going, and you're like trying to mask my pose and all this kind of thing. It's like these little memories, like they last forever, but you have to be present. But also, we've got big targets for ourselves.
Mm.
But we're not setting these targets for 5 years from now. We're setting these targets as soon as we can.
Yeah, no, I think that's so cool, and it really is one of those, isn't it? Like we said about testing yourself there, and I think if you say you want something and then you're given that opportunity to test you, if you don't then step up to that or even just try, then you're not ready for the result you say you want.
Yeah.
So I'll use myself an example. You know, my goals as a prep coach, future
Mm-hmm.
lines, pro cards, things like that. If I can't raise to the pressure of getting somebody in overall, then how am I? Why would I even speak the words of a pro card if I can't put myself on that level to even manage that amount of pressure? It's like if you say you want something, then you got to step up to the mark. And like you said, even if you get it wrong, you've then got another tool in the toolbox to say, okay, that didn't work. Let's try this. And again, it is
Yeah,
about, like you say, having that target high and working around there.
I've read something yesterday. I don't know if it was in the Daily Stokes or the post, I can't remember. It was something on the lines like every failure is a lesson, but it's
Mm,
like how you perceive, and it's like it never used the word failure, but it's like how you perceive every event. It's just a tool in your toolbox. Like we've all made mistakes in our past in every kind of aspect of our lives, and it's like if you've learned from it, it's not a mistake. It's just something that's enhanced you. So everyone thinks of positive things when it's like, oh, I learned this, and it gave me this. It's like, but what about the things that went wrong that you've learned from? They're just as important because they've just molded you as much as what you are into the person you are at this moment in time.
yeah.
Because you and I have both made mistakes when it comes to coaching. You and I both made mistakes in fucking life. Like I
Mm.
fucking hit my car against the wall a couple of days ago. So like that wasn't clever. So it's like I know to turn my wheel a little bit quicker than what I did last time. It's like you've learned to not let someone drive your car, mate. Because like that didn't go too well. But as I said, like you learn from things, and I think when it comes to imposter syndrome, bringing it back to the conversation, people you want to feel like you're in that situation, not all the time, but at least for my time, like every quarter of the year, you want to be
Yeah,
in a situation. It's like shit. Like I'm going to try some things on the weekend, and I know I said I'm not nervous about it, but I'm doing some education. But like the people who come to the seminar aren't necessarily of an age where they want to sit down. They're not loads of coaches who want to sit doing notebooks. But I'm going to try and fucking blow the brains
yeah,
with
yeah.
some cool shit, because the stuff that I'm going to talk about does apply to what they want to know. But
Mhm.
it's like, but I'm going to have to come at it with a language that will appeal to them at the same time.
Yeah,
And it's like, but that's going to be outside my comfort zone because I don't know if it's going to work because I've not tried it before.
yeah. No, and I think that's the big point, isn't it? Like I know we talked about it briefly, but if you feel imposter syndrome, make sure that you're not shying from it when you feel it, because like you just said there,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can you could just revert back to teaching the normal way that you teach, and that's your safe zone. Or you can be like, this may not work, but if it does work, then the result's going to be 10x.
Yeah,
So
and it'd be
it's like
fun.
you need to go in for it.
I think like I'm going to use your phrase that you say you've got to marinate in the uncomfortableness because
Yeah,
it's uncomfortable when you get put in them situations. Like you do get sweaty palms and you do have self doubt. Like self doubt is totally cool. Like I can remember when I was with Callan. Cal's obviously a very good prep coach, but like I remember we were speaking when we were in Malaga, and it's like he used to second guess decisions, and he got a few things wrong.
mm,
And it's like that's okay. Like we'll be talking like like my peak, like he probably dieted me too hard. It was just it was just a learning curve. It was
yeah.
nothing bad.
And then that's the funny thing, isn't it? On a surface level, his wins make him look like he knows what he's talking about. But on a deeper level, it's probably all the mistakes that make him the
Of course,
person that
yeah,
he is.
yeah. And it's making the thing with when it comes to prep and coaches as well, is like you should stay with the coach,
Yeah,
because if you go to a new coach, unless the coach has done something fucking completely wrong, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
like it's like you go to a new coach, that coach is going to have to make mistakes with you as well to
yeah,
learn your
yeah.
body. Because every coach has got a modality and a path that they like to take with people, like something that's worked for them, and obviously they adjust it based off the individual. But like you let the coach make mistakes, and then you learn from the mistakes as a team, because that's what
Mm,
it is. It's a team, isn't it? And like for me, when I work with coaches, it's like I want them to make mistakes with the clients,
Yeah.
Like, I want them to ask me questions, and I don't like it when coaches ask me questions, just expect an answer. It's like,
Hmm.
what do you think? And then we'll sit down and discuss your thought process, and I'm just going to give you my perspective. It doesn't mean my perspective's right. It's just that potentially I've had a little bit more experience,
Yeah.
and then we're just going to dissect the best, and then choose what's best for the client,
Hmm.
because that's what important matters the most. But when it comes to imposter syndrome, and I know we spoke about the previous weekend with yourself, but was there any other situations where you thought, shit, like
Yeah, it's
shit?
funny. It's funny you bring that up about the full board because definitely my first teacher, the
Oh
one that
yeah.
we absolutely shit myself for that one. I remember even on the build up, I was sitting there in the car and it was a little bit quiet, and he was like, "You all right? Yeah, yeah, I'm fine." But yeah, it's one of those ones where I think you realise, like I said at the start, their tests to say that to make you if you want to be the person that you want to be, it's like this is a stepping stone in that process, and it's like if you don't do it, you're going to feel worse. I'd rather embrace the feeling of being an imposter and do a bad job at it, or than not do it at all and not ever know if I was capable of going to that place that I want to go to. Like the feeling that you'd have of guilt of thinking, oh, what if I did do that, compared to, oh, I could do that a bit better next time, far outweighs it.
100%. I think the word imposter is. I don't like the word imposter for imposter syndrome. If that makes sense, because you've earned a right to be there to some degree. To
Yeah.
get that opportunity, you must have done something right. Does that make sense? And so it's like,
Yeah.
so when it comes to like you teaching, like you've earned that opportunity. Now
Mhm.
you feel outside your depth because you've not done it before because it's just a new experience. But you're
Yeah.
not an imposter.
Mm.
It's not like you're to pretend to be someone you're not. You're a very established coach.
Yeah.
It's not like someone like who works in Tesco is trying to tell someone about the mechanics of testosterone within the body.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's not that kind of thing. So it's like, well, biology of testosterone within the body, if one use the correct terminology. It's like you ain't the right there. It's just well outside your norm and your comfort zone, and you
Mm.
just feel overwhelmed. And I think imposter syndrome is just a lot of overwhelm for people. But when
Yeah.
you actually like sort of break it down and look at it through a simpler lens, as we keep saying, looking through things, it's not, most of the time not that big of a deal,
Yeah.
but we make it so much more of a bigger deal. So I had no doubt that you're going to smash that teaching, because I've
Mhm.
seen you talk, and you talk very, very confidently, and you can tell by the introduction to these podcasts, you speak with such a very good tone of voice and authority. Like, I had no doubt, but in your head it's like, say if this goes wrong, say if this goes wrong, say if this goes wrong, say if they laugh at me, and it's like they're not going to laugh at you. Like, logically, no one's going to laugh at you unless you say something funny.
And I remember you saying one thing to me as well. You said, if you've lived that experience, then no one's to question if it's true.
Yeah, yeah,
So I know it's not really relevant to imposter syndrome, but just even to anything in general, if you've got an experience with something and you're like, oh, I wonder what this person thinks, that person thinks, no one can tell you it's not wrong if you've lived and done it. It's like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
your experience of it. Whether someone agrees with it based on their experience is a completely different
yeah,
answer. But you can teach confidently knowing that I've gone through that. I'm eligible to speak about it.
yeah. And I think but that's what makes the world a great place, isn't it? It's like everyone's like, so most people are faced with very, very similar questions or situations, but the experience that each individual has is different to get to that gets to that equation, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like we've all got different opinions, and that's the beauty about it. It's like having a different opinion, because if everyone agreed, it would be fucking boring. So when you're sitting in an environment, and again, you feel like an imposter, that's the whole point of the topic of this conversation. It's like you're talking about your experience and what you've learned. So I've learned off, for example, I bought Chris Knott's functional anatomy mechanics course before today. So I've not been through that yet. So I can't use that as an experience yet. But when I've listened to him, because I really respect the guy, when I've listened to him and he says things, it's quite cool. So I've now learned that. So now I've experienced that myself because I've learned it. Whereas if people have not done the course like me at this moment in time, it's like I can't use that as an experience yet. So
yeah.
it's like I can't use that as a tool for a conversation.
Hmm.
But yeah,
No, it makes sense. And I think I've got a question for you then. So I'm gonna throw a few different questions based on like things I know I've experienced, and I want to get your
cool.
take on it. So if a coach is looking to go fully online, or they're just getting started out on coaching and they're getting like more variety of clients come in and they're feeling a little bit like, oh shit, I've never had to deal with this before. How would you
Mhm.
coach them to deal with that imposter syndrome?
Okay, so like when you're getting a coach in a scenario, it depends obviously what the scenario is. If it's something above our pay grade, then it's like you potentially best refer out, especially if you're new into the industry. But if it's a scenario where, I don't know, a client's hurt the shoulder, for example, it's okay, cool. Do you have any physiotherapy notes? Like, get as much data as you can from that client about the issue that there may be, and then okay, cool. Break it down with what you know. Like, because
Mm,
within our skill set, we're only allowed to do so many things. Do you know what I mean? And as long as you're not putting that client in harm, and for example, if the shoulder was still an issue, they would potentially still be seeing some physiotherapist. So communicate with the physiotherapist, and then learn off the physiotherapist. Don't look at a situation. I actually got asked this in a check-in actually. Don't look at a situation of I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's looking at a situation called like, how can this make me better? Because I don't have the skill set at this moment in time to deal with it straight away. So it's like, what questions can I ask? So I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and like the acronym was sales. It was like a sales selling podcast, but it was like learning how to sell but not sell, if that makes sense. And like S was it's great when you can't fucking remember what the first part is, isn't it? S was, I think it was S was service, A was ask questions, L was listen, E was empathize with the situation, and then S was summarize everything. So it's like you're there to provide the service. So it's like that client's come to you and you're there to provide service. Ask as many questions. Listen to what they actually say. Empathize with the situation that you've got with you. And then solution, your solution, like what is the solution? Like what is the whole thing that you're going to sort of relay back to them? Or summarize, sorry, what's the whole thing? It's like, okay, cool. So we can do this, we can't do this. You've had this issue before. And then when you break things down and then you've got all this data, the situation's not that scary anymore. And especially when you're having a conversation with the clients in front of you and they're agreeing to things, you're sort of, how can I put it? You're sort of giving yourself a bit of a safety net because they said they can do this.
Yeah.
So that's maybe the best way is like get as much information and don't be, at the end they come to you for help, and you can still help them with nutrition. You can still help them with any other aspect of things, with training if it's a nutritional issue. And again, as long as it's nothing that's outside your pay grade, and it's like it needs psychological help, or they've really hurt themselves and need to see an osteopath or something like that, then keep going.
Yeah, no, I love that. And next one is, let's say, for instance, someone's doing their first bodybuilding show or their first kind of competition prep, and they're feeling a little bit like, I feel like my depths, I'm nervous to stand on stage. Like, again, when it comes to just bodybuilding as a whole and imposter syndrome, what advice would you give to somebody that's potentially experiencing that?
Do you want the PC advice or do you want the normal advice? So like
Both.
when it comes up, like bodybuilding's an extreme sport, like it's an extreme sport, like, and it's very, very easy to compare. It is. It's very, very easy to compare, and especially with social media nowadays. So no, like the first piece of advice, like nobody puts a shit photo on Instagram. Okay, it's like all the photos I put up on Instagram were fucking good lighting with either your camera or Charles, right? Because they made me look fucking better than what I did. So it's like nobody puts. So it's like there's no point comparing yourself to photos that people obviously either they touched up via some of the editing tools or they got it in good lighting and whatnot. And then also it's like you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
So step up on, like you step up on stage, as long as you put all the preparation in, and for me as well, like for the clients that you prep, for the coaches who I coach, who some of them do shows or do photo shoots, etc. It's like the stress is on me, not on you. If you've applied everything that I've said, and that's the beauty about someone like Adriana, and that's where the pressure does come on you a little bit, is because she'll do whatever you say.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a true reflection of your work. But if you as a client has done everything you've been told to do, you've not missed a beat. It's not on you, it's on the coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I'd approach it. So it's like when Kuba was prepping me, it's like I'd done everything he said. And if the result wasn't the result, it's on him, not me.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I had control of was posing. But if I've executed exercise as well as I can, I've stuck to nutrition, I've slept as best as I can, I've dealt with stress as best as I can, I've done as many steps, etc. He's either called the right shots or the wrong shots.
Yeah.
So as the client, you just got to do what you can do.
Mm.
And I said, as long as you control what you can control. And as I said, you've got to find out. Because some people shouldn't be stepping on stage. And if you're that nervous about stepping on stage and stepping in front of people, you might like the process of bodybuilding, but you don't like the show of bodybuilding. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to not want to step on stage. And just love bodybuilding is what it is, which is training, diet, getting as lean as you can.
Love it.
I'll leave it there.
And any other questions regarding imposter syndrome in general, like in terms of what you've experienced that you'd want to give to the listeners in terms of overcoming it?
So, like, in regards to overcoming it, you're never going to overcome it to some regards because you're always going to find yourself in them situations. But you nailed it before, mate. Embrace it and look at it as a test of who you are as an individual. And if you have the growth personality, you're going to look at that test and you're going to succeed or you're not going to pass that moment in time. But even if you don't pass, it's how do you then take that feedback and then what you do with it. And for me, what I'd advise people, if you really, really want to become what you want to become, you'll learn from it and then learn what you fell short on. Because no one's perfect. Like, I failed my theory test the first time and I know exactly the question I got wrong. So I could either not driven my car or go back, look at the manual again and learn and then retake the test.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it. In regards to yourself, a question I've got for you is, when you've got clients who feel like a little bit overwhelmed, like very similar to the question you've asked me, what's your advice? So you've got my opinion on it, but what would your advice be? And what would your advice be to people who are they're overconfident to some regards, that they don't potentially feel imposter syndrome in them situations, and like how would you potentially bring them back down to earth?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think the first one is, like you said, I think I'd look at every bit of pressure that you feel or every bit of self-doubt as you feel as an opportunity to prove to
Hmm.
yourself that you can do it. And when you come up against these hurdles, it's like, okay, do I sink or do I swim? And you've got to
Love
realize
it.
that
Yeah.
this is my opportunity and my time to be like, right, I either overcome this, or even if I don't overcome it, I'm gonna learn how I can overcome it in the future by doing it. And that's the best way to look at it, is look at it as a challenge, look at it as a test. And like we're back to what we said, is it's a chance to prove to yourself you are who you say you want to be. And I think when you look at it like that, you embrace it because it's in your control what you're going to do, and you've got a yes or no choice to go ahead and do it, and you can make that moment, the decision in the moment to go ahead and just do it. And regardless of what happens, it's going to be a positive experience just going for it either way.
Cool.
And
Second
then the
part.
latter question, so was someone's overconfident. I'd ask them if the bar's set high enough. So if they're feeling extremely
That's a
confident in
fucking
doing
very, yeah, I like
something,
that.
yeah, if they're feeling overly confident and they're feeling like I'm going to do this regardless, I think there's an element of how about I set the bar high enough. If you're feeling like something's easy or it's too achievable, then maybe is that goal, is it high enough? That's the answer for that one.
No, I like that because I think because that is a good thing. It's like, are you actually testing yourself then?
Yeah,
And it's like, because like everyone should feel like an imposter to some regard if you're pushing the boundaries. Um, so no, I like that. That was a good thing. Is the bar high enough? I think that's a good thing to leave it on. It's
yeah,
like
no, no,
for listeners, if you don't feel in that situation, it's like, can you put yourself in that situation?
yeah. No, no, I like yourself, and it's a great note to finish it on, and just leave it as imposter syndrome's a normal feeling that every person that pushes themselves is going to feel from time to time, and that's your opportunity to lean into it, embrace it, and just become a version of yourself that you wasn't before by doing it.
Agreed. I think that's a good way to end it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and catch you on episode 6.
Peace.
That's all right. Man, I fucking love these.